From Yuta Watanabe available on a free for your shooting needs, to a 20-point power forward, Jeremy Grant entering free agency, here are some of the best NBA free agent sleepers that every team can afford. First up, let's take a look at Brooklyn's sharpshooter, Yuta Watanabe. Kyrie Irving labeled Watanabe as the best shooter in the world at one point during the 2022-23 season, and he wasn't wrong. Watanabe was making nearly half of all shots he'd taken from beyond the arc, and those numbers were better than the Splash Brothers. The Japanese international has gone under the radar due to a number of big names available in the free agency, but there will be plenty of teams monitoring his situation. The Lakers are apparently in the market for Yuta, and the Toronto Raptors have also reached out. Other teams looking for a three-point specialist will also try to convince Watanabe, and as per Mark Stein, the Phoenix Suns could also add forward to their super team. At 28 years of age, Yuta offers a lot more than just three-point shooting. He's not a great shot creator, but hustles a lot on defense and can finish at the rim too. I love watching him play, especially when he's on one of those special splash runs. Another great shooter hitting the free agency in summer 2023 is Joe Ingles from Milwaukee, and he'd be a fantastic option for teams looking to add some shooting depth. The difference between Watanabe and Ingles is in their overall contributions. Ingles offers a lot on the defensive end like Watanabe, but he's also a much better passer and doesn't mind taking that creative role while playing as a forward. This makes him a double threat because you know he can find the right pass, but also consistently make the shots from beyond the arc. Ingles has been around in the NBA for quite some time, so everyone knows just how good he is. And that's why the Denver Nuggets are interested in the 35-year-old. Having spent 8 years in Salt Lake City, Ingles became the all-time leader in three-pointers made for the franchise and averages 41% from range throughout his career. So, if there's any team out there looking for an experienced shooter, your best bet is sounding out Joe for a move before some other team snaps him up in a jiffy, because he's a man in demand, just like Josh Okogie, who is somewhat of a secret weapon for Phoenix throughout their 2023 campaign. For a team known for its superstar starters, it was poetic justice that Okogie, a defender signed on a minimum contract, proved to be the best player in many important games. His hustle caught the eye of mainstream media and the fans, and that's why he could be in line for a big payday in the summer of 2023, and one that he definitely deserves. The Suns would love to retain him, but they'll have to make some big decisions, especially after upgrading from Chris Paul to Bradley Beal cost them a pretty buck too. Is it worth letting Okogie walk because they've also got Bismack Biyombo, Damian Lee, and many others becoming free agents, and they can't possibly bring all of them back? If they do bring Okogie back, then a case can be made for Torrey Craig too. The forward has been with the Suns for a couple of seasons, but it seems unlikely that the Suns will retain both Craig and Okogie. This picking and choosing makes me so grateful that I'm not a part of any front office. Because just imagine the pressure behind making the decision. Craig offers the ideal cover for the bench because he brings a lot of energy and scoring off it, but also has the ability to guard a number of positions. I personally think his rebounding gets overlooked because he did average 5.5 rebounds per game, having played 79 games for the Suns in the 2022-2023 season. What's even more impressive is how he was shooting at nearly 40% from beyond the arc, and that's why he's going to be approached by quite a few teams in free agency. But if Torrey Craig didn't move you, Ayo Dosunmu definitely should. Before the beginning of the 2022-2023 season, I had really high hopes from Dosunmu, especially with Lonzo Ball's injury. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as well as I'd hoped, but he still averaged around 9 points per game while playing around 25 to 26 minutes. His field goal percentage was great, hovering around the 50% mark, but his contributions in other parts of the game were nominal. The talent is there, but maybe a change of scenery is what gets Dosunmu going. Chicago have made a qualifying offer for the 23-year-old, and he's likely to be a bull in the upcoming 2023-24 season. But this is a risk worth taking, especially considering he'll be super cheap. The Bulls already have a crowded backcourt, so Dosunmu could get more minutes for a decent team, and given his ability to create and score consistently, time is what Ayo needs to come good. If youngsters aren't your cup of tea, and your team is in need of some serious experience, then a player like Dwight Powell could be a bargain. Most big teams will be after Brook Lopez, but there are cheaper bargains available too, especially if you want someone to come off the bench and dominate the paint for a few minutes every now and then. If that's what your team's looking for, then Powell could be a smart option. The 31-year-old was the only center on that Mavs roster in the 23 season and possibly the only good defender in the paint, too. He's been around for nearly a decade now and loves crashing the glass. So if a team needs all that, they should invest in Powell, because he's a very smart player who understands his limitations. A player like Powell could have been the ideal addition for the Lakers, especially against the Nuggets in the 2023 Conference Finals when they got blown out in the paint by Jokic and co. The Mavs wouldn't be making the smartest decision by letting him go, unless they've got plans to sign a dominant big. Talking about underrated picks, you can't sleep on Jalen McDaniels. If your primary concern is some more athleticism off the bench, a forward who can play multiple positions and do a little bit of everything, look no further than McDaniels. The Hornets will fight tooth and nail to keep him in Charlotte, and I can't blame them. Jalen's class. Still only 25, McDaniels averaged over 9 points per game on 46% shooting, and is a very capable rebounder too. The Hornets have one of the worst teams in the league, so it wasn't a surprise to see Jalen slipping under the radar. There's no doubt that his younger brother is worth all the hype, but Jalen's worth a punt too, I'd say. As good as some of these names were, they don't compare well enough to the last two on the list because these two will be serious steals, no matter where they end up. First is Jock Landale, another bench player from Phoenix. Landale's consistent performances were so good for the Suns that he replaced DeAndre Ayton as the center in plenty of games. In fact, the coaching staff felt more comfortable with Landale when closing out games, and he did a great job against the Nuggets in one of the Suns' wins in their series lost to the eventual champions. I'm sure the Suns are trying their best to convince Landale to stay with the franchise, but the front office can't afford to pay him as much as some of the other offers on the table. Centers are in big demand in the league, and with very limited options out there, Landale could make a really big payday. He's a cheap backup option as a center and has the ability to make plays. I can understand the criticism over his offensive limitations, but he gives his 100% and loves to hit the glass hard. The Lakers and the Mavericks should be on the phone to his agent, because he'd be a great fit in either of those two rotations. But the best free agency sleeper has to be Jeremy Grant of the Portland Trail Blazers, considering he scored at over 19 in the 2021 season for the Detroit Pistons. Grant's not the youngest player in the league, but he's recently added scoring to his game, coming leaps and bounds in the last couple of seasons. Whoever signs Jeremy in free agency is going to be getting a power forward ready to explode. Grant can defend multiple positions, and his ability to find the bucket is very underrated. I love him as an athlete because he's very competitive and also loves driving to the rim and finishing strong. Jeremy was offered a $112 million max contract by the Trailblazers, but apparently he didn't accept it. But the Blazers are the favorites for re-signing him. That doesn't mean any other team can't make a move for him. So, from Jeremy Grant readily available to Yuta Watanabe being in heavy demand, these were some of the best NBA free agency sleepers that every team can afford.